All right, and we are now thrilled to introduce our next guest to Johnny on the Track. And he has been a lead pit reporter for ESPN. He's been the former host of NASCAR now. He's been a lead announcer for IndyCar on ESPN and ABC. And of course, he called the vintage Dale Earnhardt Jr. win in 2001 when he was the play-by-play, lap-by-lap coverage announcer for NBC and Turner Sports. He also did that for ESPN. And that is Alan Bestwick. Alan, and most importantly, of course, he is a Rhode Island guy, born and raised. So we are super excited to have him on the show. Alan, thanks for joining me.
And that Patriot sweatshirt did okay when I saw you. So yeah, it's all good. New England guy through and through.
Yes, love that. Love that. So we were talking a little before the show, and you mentioned your love for college basketball. So I want to start with that. So I don't get to do this much because this is a NASCAR podcast, but I am a huge basketball fan. So I want to talk some college hoops. So you're obviously a Rhode Island guy. I don't know if you keep up with the current Rhode Island teams, but have you seen the little Bryant run we've got going?
Yeah. Coach has got them fired up. They're doing the dance like everybody else is around the testing and COVID and everything else, like everybody has all season long. But I don't know Coach personally, but we have mutual friends, and they all tell me, great guy, great coach, good things going to happen. And obviously we're seeing it already with Bryant. So got a shot at a conference championship, and
yes,
and a shot at a trip to Indianapolis. And so fingers crossed for them. Hopefully it comes through.
Yeah, we're rooting for them. We are absolutely rooting for them. So we're going into the tournament, March Madness. Some of these conference championships obviously already started. Do you have like a dark horse pick of a team you think, and we'll go men's and women's because you're a women's fan as well. So let's go both. Give me two dark horse picks that you think could make a deep run, maybe Elite Eight kind of run?
Well, here's the thing about the NCAA tournament on both sides this year.
Right. And
it is COVID related. One positive test and you're out.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, that's crazy to think about. It's crazy to think about.
So, heaven forbid, but somebody like Gonzaga, who certainly appears destined for the Final Four.
Mm-hmm.
But the Final Four could become the Final Three.
Yeah.
The way the whole tournament is gonna operate. So picking anybody as a favorite is really difficult this year. I'm really curious to see what Villanova can do. Yeah. One of the top teams in the country, but now minus one of the top players.
Yeah.
And just coming back from injury, if that's even possible, and jumping right back in, it's a tough thing. Dark horses, anybody.
I agree.
Anybody, particularly I think out of the Big Ten. Because the Big Ten was so competitive this year. You see a team like Michigan State with all the things that they've dealt with this year and all of a sudden getting hot a little bit. The SEC has got a couple teams that make you scratch your head and say, well, can they? Are they? And then the Big 12. I mean, okay, so what do we make of Texas? What do we make of Oklahoma? What do we make of, I think it's really one of those unusual seasons. Pretty normally you can look at four teams and say, well, three of those four are definitely going to be in the Final Four. This year, I think it's anybody's game. On the women's side, same thing. I think there's probably 8 teams that can win the national championship. And literally any of those 8.
Yeah.
Which of those 8 actually get all the way to the Final Four is anybody's guess, just because of all the circumstances. So I think it's going to be really fascinating. My greatest hope for the tournament is that it's decided on the court.
Yes. Yes.
and that everybody who's earned the chance to be there gets the chance to play and decide it on the court. And after that, it's all a bonus.
And I would add too, I hope in the end, people aren't people don't look at the champion and say, yeah, well, they won in a COVID year when two teams unfortunately didn't even get to play or something like that. So I hope that obviously we hope that all teams play, no positive tests. We get through it, both tournaments, like, perfectly smooth. That might not be the case. But
Time has a way of erasing asterisks. Nobody remembers um, anything except that the Giants were Super Bowl champions years ago when the Patriots were trying to go 19-0.
yeah,
Nobody remembers that the Giants barely snuck into the playoffs and so on and so. The Giants were Super Bowl champions. There's no asterisk there. Baseball, when they've had some shortened seasons, last year, hockey,
right.
all that will be remembered is who the Stanley Cup champion was. Tampa Bay Lightning. Not how they got there. They played in this weird bubble in Toronto, and then they went to won't matter. So time has a way of erasing asterisks, and that'll happen with this also.
I agree with you, and I hope that other people, see the same thing. So that was a good chat. I like that. So again, I don't get to do that much because this is a NASCAR podcast, but I'm happy we did. So let's move now into your career in the motorsports industry. And I want to take it back to those early days in Rhode Island where, there's not much around to get reps in. We have some great tracks around like Seekonk, which you did early experience at. Stafford's a beautiful track. Monadnock's a beautiful track. So there is stuff. But you did some play-by-play stuff, lap-by-lap stuff with Seekonk. You did some early stuff at your Coventry High School. How do you think that those early reps shaped the announcer you became to be?
Well, first of all, I didn't get into the business to be a race announcer.
Okay.
I got into broadcasting. That's what my dream was and my passion was. You're from Narragansett. There's a very famous guy from your hometown by the name of Salty Brine. Who was
Yes.
a god, a legend in Rhode Island radio. Voices like Salty's coming out of the radio. Fred Cusick, who did the television broadcast for the Boston Bruins on Channel 38 when I was a kid, the Bobby Orr years and that kind of thing. Fred's voice, a series by the name of Wide World of Sports that used to be on ABC television on Saturday afternoons, guy by the name of Jim McKay, one of the greats of all time in the business. Those people, those were my idols. Those were the people that I soaked up their work like a sponge and wanted to emulate and formed my, I'll call it the framework of who I wanted to be.
Right.
Everything after that was just, actual getting jobs, going to work and getting reps and just growing up. The whole race announcer part was kind of an accident. A very fortuitous one, but an accident. But I just wanted to be a broadcaster. So growing up in Rhode Island, which Providence at the time was a wonderful radio market, and you were in the shadow of Boston and in the shadow of New York. And if you had a good AM radio in those days, you could hear a lot of wonderful broadcasting at any hour of the day or night, which I did a lot.
Interesting. So I think we talked about this as well before, but so I originally came to I go to Emerson College, and I originally came to be what I wanted to since a kid was to be a broadcaster. And I did some stuff in high school. I actually did my whole senior project around wanting to be a broadcaster. So I've done basketball and baseball and soccer, and I had a love for it. I really did. And, I don't want to go on a soliloquy here, but I will say growing up, guys like you, guys like Mike Tirico, Mike Breen, these guys that I idolized, Mike Joy as well, and, my different favorite sports, I guess, if you will, kind of inspired me. So I do want to take this time to just thank you for, bringing me into the sports industry, because I think without broadcasters, the sport would absolutely not be the same. Try watching a sport on mute. It's just not interesting. And then another thing I want to thank you for is I've seen you on a lot of these podcasts, these small podcasts, and it gives me hope that, I would say that I've done reps in college of trying to be a broadcaster, but I would say my main focus, I think, has shifted more towards the marketing side of sports. But it gives me hope that people in the industry are willing to help. And so, I'm getting a little off track here, but I just want to thank you for, being a helpful guy, trying to help like guys like myself trying to break in the industry. So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Look, something that hasn't changed over time is that we all have people
Right.
somewhere along the way who gave us a break, who gave us some time, who gave us advice. Years ago, AM radio
Yeah.
was a big thing, and Rhode Island was full of small AM radio stations. And that was kind of how you got into the business. You got a job part-time on the weekends or at nights or something at one of the small AM radio stations, and you got some reps. And if you were pretty good, then maybe one of the bigger stations in Providence hired you or someplace else. That's how you did it. Today, those job opportunities at those radio stations aren't necessarily prevalent because
Right.
of, the proliferation of media and options and so on. But you can do things like this.
Yes.
With a Mac, a ring light, a microphone, and a set of headphones, you can create your own studio that we didn't have the option to do years ago. So it's all the same. The challenge is still the same. Create reps, get advice, make a network, make connections, and work at your craft.
Yeah.
And it's just a different time and a different method of doing it. But it's all the same. And that hasn't changed over 40 years now.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I still love to do it. I still love to, and I mean, you see me now behind, the mic talking to you, but I still do love the play-by-play atmosphere, to be at the game and know that, people are watching this and listening to your broadcast of it. I still do love that. But I don't know, maybe it was the COVID break kind of shifted me towards trying other things that I thought I wouldn't, be interested in, and getting into like business and marketing ventures. But I don't know. I'm not sure what it exactly was, but I would say, I don't know. Maybe it's a lack of faith in myself that I don't think I could get in the industry. But I guess that's the story for another day. So I do want to keep this moving. So I want to go to, just the massiveness of these tracks. So let's take a mile track, a mile and a half track. How difficult is it for you to have your eyes focused on here and back there? I'm sure people are in your ears like, oh, you got something over here. How difficult is that to take all that in and announce just a huge space of land?
Well, I think that's part of the talent of doing it, but it's also part of the physical setup. So if you're doing whatever the sporting event is these days, and you're sitting in a studio somewhere, and this monitor in front of you is all you've got, it is very hard to have that perspective of the broader event.
Right.
And your entire menu is what the picture is they're showing you at the moment, and what other resources you might have, timing and scoring monitor. Maybe you've got a couple of isolation monitors where they've got a couple of other cameras you can see that aren't actually the camera that's on the air. We've always been fortunate to be on site. So you're in this wonderful position that's usually up high somewhere, and you can see the whole playing field.
Wow.
You can see it all. So at Daytona, 2.5 miles around,
Mm-hmm.
and for perspective, that running track that goes around the entire football field is 1/4 of a mile.
Right.
Daytona's 2.5 miles around, but you can see the whole speedway. So there's a benefit to that. Now it becomes a balance of the key to a successful broadcast, racing broadcast particularly, but any sport, you pick it. The decision you make every second of every minute that you're on the air of what the most important thing is at that moment.
Right.
In a football game, baseball game, a ball game, if you've got a camera on the ball, you probably got 90% of the story covered.
Yes, I would agree.
In an auto race or a golf tournament, where's the ball? And that's the question you have to ask yourself every second of every minute. Where's the ball? Is it the leader? Is it the 5th place guy? Is it the 40th place guy? Is it back on pit road? Is it behind back in the garage? Where's the ball? Every second of every minute. That's the question you ask. And hopefully you answer it correctly. You don't do that alone. Nobody does television by themselves. I kind of joke around that it takes 7 people to make anything happen in television. It did. Maybe that number's come down a little bit these days, but you want to switch the coverage from the lead car to the 5th place car. You got 2 cameras involved, the director, the producer, and at least one of the announcers being told about it, and the technical director who's pushing the buttons at the team. So, nothing happens by itself, and those decisions are collaborative decisions every second of every minute.
So let me ask you this. How long did it take you to find in you, this is where the ball is? Like, did that take a while to know and be confident of where that hypothetical ball was?
No,
didn't.
From the very beginning of my time doing this, I've been surrounded by great people. So when I started at MRN, doing the races on the radio, I was surrounded by Barney Hall and Eli Gold and Joe Moore and so on, and a group of people who are experienced at it, and gave you the freedom to soak it up. And hopefully you had the talent and the instinct to pick up on it.
Yeah.
What it was, television, same thing. You're surrounded by good people. I mean, you walk into a television booth, you got Benny Parsons standing next to you. And Wally and our producer and our director, Mike Wells, probably invented a lot of what you would consider to be the best auto racing technique as a director, and worked with Mike for years. A great guy. So, all these people collaborating on that decision. Did it take long? No. And not to pat myself on the back, but I kind of feel like I've always had an instinct for it also. So it's one of those things that if you're paying attention, you should learn pretty quickly.
Right. So let's keep on that. So let's keep on the broadcasting front. And you obviously did IndyCar. You announced some Indy 500s. So was there a difference in, I guess, style, but let's say style. So was there a difference in style between how you had to announce an IndyCar race versus a NASCAR race? Or was it, no, it's racing, it's similar? Was there a difference?
There were some differences. So, when you go to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, you're still working in the same broadcast booth.
Right.
For the Indy 500 as you are the Brickyard 400. The track is still the same. The gate you come in is the same. Where you park your car is the same. The object is still the same. Cover the required distance in less time than anybody else. But the pace of the event is very different.
Yeah.
So, an Indy car is going around there at 230 miles an hour. Average. Maybe 225 in the race. 220 as they slow down some. NASCAR in a qualifying lap doesn't get to 200 miles an hour. So the pace is different. The look is different. It's much harder to pull the number off the side of an Indy car.
Yes, I can imagine.
Than it is, a NASCAR racer. Plus they're going a lot faster. So it's different. There's some different terminology. There's different traditions. But I've always looked at it like this. Race fans are race fans.
Yeah, they
And
are.
while they may have a preference for one or the other, I know if you go down into the area where all the drivers and crew chiefs and team owners stay in their motor coaches during a race weekend, and you're working a day race, and there's a night race with a different series. That's what they're all watching. You know, whether it's the NASCAR guys watching IndyCar, or the IndyCar guys watching NASCAR, or everybody's watching Formula One in the morning before their race on Sunday afternoon. You know, race fans are race fans. So we are too.
Yeah.
So there's some different terminology and some different things, but I've never found the differences between them to be so great as to say, yeah, you can't do that. You can only do that one. And you can only do that one. I think that's nonsense.
Yeah, I would agree. I came in with that perception when I asked that question. I was like, well, they can't be that. Racing is racing. And
Mhm.
yeah, when you said it, I mean, racing fans love the sport. It's not we love NASCAR, we don't love IndyCar. No, we love to watch people race. That's what we love to do. And so, yeah, I mean, both are similar in many ways, but at the same time are different. And you covered that. So I want to go back to 2001. That day, I know I'm sure you've been asked this hundreds of times, but the Dale Jr. call in 2001, probably what most would argue as probably the best and most influential moment in the sport. When Dale Jr., for those, I mean, my parents are listening, so they need me to set the scene. For those that don't know, in 2001, Dale Earnhardt tragically passed away at the Daytona 500. So fast forward to the summer, I believe in July, if I'm correct. Is that right, Alan? So
Mhm.
fast forward to July, and first time back at Daytona. And who wins? Dale Earnhardt's son. So take me back to that final lap. And I want to know what the emotion you felt in that moment was. Did you know that this is going to be a moment that lives in NASCAR lore, that lives in NASCAR history forever? And on top of that, did did the moment like feel as an announcer, and I want to ask this the correct way, did the moment like feel too big for you? Like, man, this doesn't even need my voice. It's such an influential moment that we're watching.
Well, I think to pick that apart a little bit,
Yeah.
did did it did it feel too big? No. If it was, I didn't belong there. Um, so no, it didn't feel too big. It's what I do.
Right.
It's what you live for. Is
Yeah. Yeah.
is the big moment um, in the big event, and the bigger the better. So um, so no, it certainly didn't feel too big. Yeah, you have to remember that that was a 5 month odyssey to get to that moment.
Right.
From the crash at the end of the Daytona 500 in February to that checkered flag at the end of the Pepsi 400 in July was a 5 month odyssey for a lot of people. Um, you know, Dale Earnhardt Sr. He was the Pied Piper of the sport. I mean, he was the one that everybody followed. He was one of the best ever, if not the best ever. And you know, danger and death are a part of auto racing, but you never expected that.
Yeah.
Um, and so you've been on this whole journey, and now you come back for the first time to that scene. And and more than anything else, it was a human story. Um, Here was the sport's most popular driver, named after his dad, coming back to the place where he lost his dad, where his dad died, and coming back to revisit all of that 5 months later. Um, the human emotion of things is part of why we love sports. It's part of why we love movies. It's part of why emotions. Well, those were all there for us. Everybody is pulling for this kid, because what would have been better medicine for this kid than to win the next race at the place where his dad lost his life?
Right.
So that's all happening. And then the race starts. And he's in contention, fully expected, and just like the competitors, you can't ride the edge of that emotion for 3 hours. Let the game unfold. Let the race unfold. Let things happen. And it begins to build to a finish. Now remember that as that evening played out, he got shuffled back into the pack in the late laps after doing a lot of running up front and leading during the race. So now you're set. And this thing that so many people wanted to see happen all of a sudden doesn't look likely. And this tremendous rally begins, this inspired rally.
Yeah.
Back toward the front. And, now that emotion begins. Could he? Will he? Can he? And the answer was yes. And it unleashed this great wave of grief turned happiness release by so many people, the 100 and whatever thousand people that were there, the millions that were watching, the competitors themselves, Dale Jr. himself. And so, there it was. All you got to do is let it happen.
And you did.
And follow the philosophy of the people who I've tried to emulate all of my career, which is you could see what's happening.
Right.
What can I say that will add to that? What can I say that will encapsulate it in as few words as possible? Now, the real story of that is that the prior October, in a race at Talladega, the last race that his dad won, his dad came from way back in the pack in the final laps to win the race. And as you looked from the broadcast booth at Talladega out across turns 3 and 4, about every time the field went through turns 3 and 4, it seemed like he passed another 2 or 3 cars, usually on the bottom. Well, in those last laps at Daytona, every time you looked out across turns 3 and 4, seemed like the red car passed 2 or 3 cars on the bottom. And at some point, the thought flashed into my head, looks just like his old man. And let it go.
Lessons learned from his father.
Just let it go. Because I don't write things. I don't script things. But that came back to me as we got to the last laps. And it was honest emotion on my part. Yeah. He looked just like another way of saying it would have been, look just like his old man. Because that's what it looked like to me.
That's amazing. That's an amazing story. So did going into that day, and obviously throughout, but going into that day, could you feel the emotion of the stadium?
Oh yeah. Yeah. You'd have had to have been on a tranquilizer or something not to, it was there. There's a nervous energy, and think about it. Auto racing is a dangerous game. And fortunately, these days, we don't get to see that danger played out in front of us.
Yes.
In real time. Fortunately. But we did the beginning of 2001, and now you're back at that same track. Well, it's just natural for the people involved in the sport to be a little on edge. Man, let's get through this safely. That's natural.
So this leads me actually perfectly into my next question. So a huge difference between the early 2000s racing and in the 90s, obviously, is the safety aspect. Obviously, there's still dangers, like you said, in motorsports. But to be honest, prior to that Ryan Newman crash last year, racing fans didn't really think about it. And, I'm sure they didn't think about it in the 90s and 2000s, but it happened. Now we don't really think about it. So what do you think, as well as that, what are some of the biggest differences you see from racing in the 90s and the early 2000s to today? Let's say like tens and now.
Well, I think racing has become an engineering dominated exercise where it used to be a mechanically dominated exercise, and a driver dominated exercise. Now it's become an engineering dominated exercise. And um, is that to the benefit of the sport? I don't know. Make me sound like a crusty old fool if I say, pull an AJ Foyt and say, throw all them damn computers out. And, I mean, you can't unlearn what you know. Go to any car manufacturer these days and, you know, com- computer fluid dynamics or whatever all that fancy stuff is. It's designing all your street cars and making them as efficient and as safe as they can be. Well, all that stuff's in racing too. You can't unlearn aerodynamics. You can't unlearn all of these engineering principles. Um, so that's what's changed the most about it. A lot of the competition is being done on computers and simulations, and
Yeah.
um, and that's not wrong.
No.
But that's, your question was what's the most different? That's what's the most different. It's an engineering driven exercise now versus a mechanics and a drivers driven exercise 20, 30 years ago.
And I think that's why so many people still love like that grassroots racing, if you will, where, it's the driver, these families are building small cars and showing up to these dirt tracks and they're just racing. It's not, I mean, obviously there's engineering going in it where you have to build the car and fund that car with money because racing is an expensive sport. But I think that still has that drive of, you saw Kyle Larson in the World of Outlaws. People love that. People love to see him on dirt and just dominate because it's a type of racing where it's just old fashioned racing. And
Well, the technology is still, and the engineering is still very prevalent in that kind of racing too. And don't misunderstand what I'm saying. That's what's different about the sport is the engineering dominance of it. Drivers make a difference. It's the reason why sponsors and team owners pay huge money still to guys like Kyle Busch and Kyle Larson and Kevin Harvick and so on. Drivers make a difference. It's like, you want to make a football analogy. There's almost an unlimited budget to pay a quarterback in the NFL if he's one of those top 5 or 6 quarterbacks that make a huge difference. Hello, Tom Brady. So drivers make a difference. You still got to have somebody behind the wheel that can take that engineered race car and drive the daylights out of it faster than somebody else. And they still make a big difference.
so my last question for you on a broadcasting front is, if you take me, for example, so, a young kid who loves to, call over sports and announce over sports, if you could tell a young me and, you know, kids out there, what, is what's one thing that, you would say to someone that wants to be a professional broadcaster?
Yeah,
One,
it's not one simple thing. That's the thing. It's not one simple thing, but there's a simple set of rules that I think work to this day that haven't changed over the years. One is work at your craft. I watch a tape of every show I do, still to this day, and I have a little yellow pad here, and I pick it apart and I make notes on every show I do, still to this day. And nobody's a harder critic on me than me. I go to the next show that I do with that list of things that I want to get better on today. So that's one thing. Network. It's about the people you know. Network, 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 network. Be a good teammate.
Yeah.
Nobody does television or radio alone. They just don't. Be somebody people want to work with. Solve problems for your boss. Don't create them. And if somebody says, can you? The answer is always yes. Then you might have to figure out how to make that yes happen, but the answer is always yes. You know, I feel like over the years, I got some opportunities some other people didn't because I said, yeah, I'll go do a football game in Boise on Thanksgiving weekend, even though I just finished 41 weeks on the road with NASCAR. Yes, I will. You need somebody to go do a bowl game in Hawaii on Christmas Eve. Yes, I'll go. You know, you need somebody to go on Wednesday and do this or Thursday and do that when I'm getting on a plane and going here. I got it. I'll make it work. So the answer is always yes. Then you might have to figure out how to make that yes happen, but it's always yes.
That's it. Yeah. And I hope, I hope people would say that I have that work ethic. And, you know, again, growing up, I idolized guys like you and guys like Mike Joy, Mike Tirico. I mean, I mentioned their names, but, you know, and meeting someone like you who is willing to take the time on like a small college kids podcast that I started about a month ago. And I'm doing it because I love it. I'm doing it because I like to talk sports with other people, and I like to share my opinions, my ideas. And so again, I mean, just I appreciate the person you are who takes the time and is helping people like us get these reps that we need. So I really do appreciate that. Appreciate you coming on. So I just want to thank you for being on this. And I know I've went over the fact how appreciative I am of what you've been doing with, you know, I've looked on YouTube and you're on plenty of small podcasts. So I'm glad I got to talk to one of my icons, one of my idols. And I'm still learning. I'm still learning, man. I'll be honest, you know, asking these questions and trying to listen what you have to say while you're talking, taking that in and, you know, trying to adapt with questions I've had. So it's a learning process. It's a learning curve, and I'm willing to put the work in and continue to get these reps in and build at my craft. But like I said from the start, man, I'm a huge fan, and I love talking sports. And so when I get to have these people on the show, that's one of the reasons I started this, to just talk to people and learn what they have to say. And so I would say that's been my absolute favorite part of you know, what I've been able to do so far.
You never stop learning. No matter how long you do it, you never stop learning. And that's the important thing, is to remember that there's always something to be gained, even from bad things that happen. There's something to be gained.
Yeah. And again, thank you so much. I hope we can stay in contact. Hey, maybe if you're in the Rhode Island area sometime, we'll take it up to Seekonk. We'll take it up to somewhere, watch a race. You haven't been watching many races, correct, this season?
In basketball season, it's almost impossible. So we'll get a little more chance now that the college basketball season's starting to wind down. Another month or so, and it's about time to turn my attention back to things with wheels.
Last quick question. Do you have a favorite right now, favorite current driver, or you kind of just like watching them all?
There's too many of them that I'm still friendly with. You know, all you want to see is a good race.
Yeah.
You want to see a good race. You want to see a safe race. And like old Benny used to say all the time, you want to see who's going to win.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been blown away with the start to this season, watching these four guys come out in victory lane. And so from a fan's perspective, this is awesome. This is what you want to see. They've all been good races. You've had different guys come and get their chance to win a race. Michael McDowell, who's earned that right to be in victory lane. Kyle Larson, who's came back and performed at a high level. Obviously Byron and Bell, who are young studs in the racing industry. So I'm excited to see the rest of the season. And I gotta get my guy Chase back in victory lane. He hasn't got one yet, but we got to get him back in victory lane. So
I don't think it'll take long.
Again, thank you. This has been Johnny on the Track. We had Alan Bestwick on, and Alan, take care. All right.
Be good. Stay safe.
Thank you. You too.